There was once a game company called Quintet. You might not know them if you weren't there for the Super Nintendo era. You might not know them even if you were, but they were a company worth remembering. There aren't a lot of games that deliver on melancholy, that slow, pensive sadness that leaves you quiet and reflective. It's an emotional state that we need sometimes, something that creates a place for us to learn about ourselves and to feel the tragedy of the world. We just don't make melancholy games very often these days, but that wasn't always the case. And that's why I miss Quintet. I really wish a developer like them existed today. I feel very privileged to have grown up with their games because they frequently brought this unique Japanese sense of melancholy to their games that I'm not sure I've experienced in a video game since they mysteriously fell apart. And that melancholy was a powerful, devastating thing. A thing that left you joyful in sadness each time the credits rolled. Quintet games were wistful games, games about humanity. They were games that saw all the flaws in us and loved us anyway. That is something I would love to experience in a game again. And we have got to talk about those games. I'll have to get into some pretty major spoilers to do it, fair warning, but I think you have to get into those spoilers to understand what made these games so uniquely powerful. Even with the spoilers though, if you have never played these games, I recommend playing them for yourself sometime. You'll get a taste of them from my description, but to get the real experience, you really do have to play them. Quintet's 4 major games are all about the struggle between the light and the dark, between the two sides of our nature. In the series, this light and darkness are embodied by a god and a demon, but without a doubt, these games are really about us. And there's a beautiful arc to these, an evolution in thinking. They're all meditations on the same theme, but with the type of evolving perspective that comes with thought and time. The first of these games is ActRaiser, in which you play a defeated god returning to try to push back the darkness. Over the course of the game, you build up followers and your power grows until you can finally take on the archdemon plaguing the world. But once you finally succeed, there's an epilogue. You take one last look at all of the people you helped, and you find that while the people as a whole are prospering, many of the characters you've had the most interaction with have suffered or died. But that suffering isn't what makes it a Quintet game. No, what makes it a Quintet game is that after surveying all of the towns, you realize that the churches are empty. Now that you've won, you aren't needed. Nobody worships you anymore. There's nothing left for you. Your power is gone, and all you have left is to withdraw again into the sky. But it's pointed out that this is a good thing, that you shouldn't hope for a time when humanity needs you again, when they flock to your churches praying for help, because the best possible thing for mankind is to not face such perils, to be able to take care of itself. ActRaiser was then followed by Soul Blazer, a game where you, once again, take on the role of the god opposing an evil demon. But where ActRaiser was a story of struggling against the darkness, Soul Blazer is a story of becoming whole. Here, the demon has imprisoned the souls of everything on Earth, and you have to free them by defeating the monsters they're bound to. One by one, you restore the beings of the world, and with them comes the restoration of what they've created, what they added to the whole. Over the course of putting the pieces back together, of becoming whole, the avatar you send to Earth to fight the creatures keeping souls imprisoned falls in love. The game ends with his task done and him having to return to the heavens and leave everybody behind. But in the final scene, your avatar chooses to become mortal to return to the woman he loves. The cost, though, is forgetting everything he has experienced, including his time with her. But despite this, she finds him, and echoing the plot, she starts from the beginning, rebuilding their connection together now that the world itself is whole. ActRaiser 2 follows this, making nods to Paradise Lost, the Divine Comedy, and the Romantic era literature that so clearly influenced the Quintet games. It's also the darkest of the bunch, involving a literal journey to hell. The game is about false recovery, the unending cycle of pushing back the dark. That moment where you convince yourself you've won when really there's a lot more work to be done. And the game ends in the most Quintet way possible too. It ends with a line saying that the god you play will live forever, just before showing your statue weather and crumble as the credits roll. That is so good. But it's Terranigma that means the most to me. Terranigma is the final phase of Quintet philosophy, the culmination. It's about accepting the place of sorrow in fighting the darkness, that the only way to get through the darkness is to first accept that it's a part of you. In Terranigma, the way out of darkness starts with darkness. You can't ever find your way past it if you don't come to terms with the fact that it's where you began. It has elements of all the other games, the perpetual war between light and dark, the restoration of the world piece by piece, but most of all, it's about not sealing away the dark, but facing it, no matter how much it hurts you. The game is a tragedy, where your character is both the cause of the tragedy and the subject of one. You are betrayed. What you believe about yourself is completely upended, and at the end, after so much sacrifice, you create a world that is perfect. But in its perfection, it has no place for you. The ending is left open, though. There's a knock on a door, nothing else. It's never shown who's on the other side, but there's hope. Was that your character knocking? There's the possibility of a rebirth, of your character being reborn into this more perfect world. And then Quintet just ceased to be. The name stuck around for a few more years. The studio helped with a few more projects and released a handful of minor works, and then just faded. In 2002, they closed their forums. In 2008, their website finally died. Their work was done. The ideas they were trying to wrestle with had been worked through. The story they were trying to tell was told, and so they just vanished. But we shouldn't forget their ideas, or the feeling, the sense of melancholy tinged with wonder and hope that they brought us. All of that to say, if anybody knows or owns the right to the core Quintet saga, please reach out, because I would love to talk to you. See you next week.